Hey guys, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome to another exciting episode of Let's Talk Cloud Networking with myself, Noman Mustafa, and John Gonzalez. This time around, we did a change where we wanted to do a Zoom-based podcast, a video podcast, because we wanted to share some of the artifacts around cost and security that we'll talk about that is better presented through topologies and some pictures. So we'll try this one, and if it works out, we'll continue doing some more of these. But John Gonzalez, probably has been for 19 plus years, has been the head of infrastructure at City, and now at EP34, our principal evangelist. Talk about cloud networking and security with big financials, big enterprises. And then today we have our host, our guest, Shahzad Ali, who is basically have been working in the cloud space for almost 4 or 5 years now, and before that, pretty good on-prem experience. Focuses a lot on security, focuses a lot on how to do security right in the on-prem world and now in the cloud world. So Shahzad, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Great to have.
Hey Shahzad, great to have you here, Shahzad.
Thank you.
All right, so today, we want to discuss a very important topic, which is in the top of mind for most of the customers and business decision makers that we talk to, and it's about cloud cost. And then within that cloud cost, we are going to focus on security for this particular episode. Now, why cost is important is because when you move to the cloud, obviously, there are design pillars that you are aware of in the on-prem world, like availability, performance, reliability, security. But when you come to the cloud, most of your capabilities that you're leveraging are offered as a service. And it's important that when you're designing your network, you design it in such a way that you are basically optimizing the cost, because otherwise it might cost your business a lot of money for the things that you could have avoided if you design it properly, right? So this is what we are going to focus on, and it's an important topic. There's not a lot of knowledge in how security should be done in the cloud. People are moving their on-prem models or things that they know in the on-prem into the cloud, which may be suboptimal. And there are new players and new solutions evolving in the cloud space that are more in the cloud, do things in a more optimal way without any overheads. So one of our goals of this episode is also to educate people on how security can be done in a more optimal way in the cloud, but while avoiding too much cost spent. So Shahzad, maybe how we start is maybe you can talk about why cost is so critical in the cloud.
Yep.
And especially from a security perspective as well. And John, maybe after Shahzad, you can talk about why this was not that big of an issue in the on-prem world. Obviously, you have managed many vendors for many years at City, and you exactly know how this budgeting and finance and IT infrastructure funding works. So maybe a little bit chime in on that as well. So Shahzad, maybe you can start first.
Yeah, so Numan, this is a very important topic. As you mentioned, cost is one of the design pillars for a well-architected framework, right? So a lot of people, when they adopt cloud, they are not aware of exactly how cloud works. And sometimes they look at cloud from the application lens only, right? So they forget about the networking and security, which is very critical. It's like food and water for your applications, right? And what they basically do, they do some mistakes that actually cost them a lot in the long run or even in the short run, right? So I'll show you this slide I have where you can see the first thing they forget is about the architecture. And this is unfortunate because they are coming from the on-premise world. They know how important the architecture is, but when they go into the cloud, they think of cloud as an easy button and they forget about the architecture. Now, as part of this architecture, they also forget about how cloud works. So in cloud, if you look at it, it's a metered billing model. So you have to pay as you go. It's not like the on-premise world where you pay for the cost of your load balancer or your NAT gateway for 5 years or 3 years, and then that's it. No, that's not the case. In cloud, there are some services where you actually, by just deploying it, you have to pay the cost even if you use it or not. For example, NAT gateway. So they end up paying a lot of dollars and euros for the data or for the services that they consume, right? And then we also see that in the architecture space, when they try to build this connectivity from the on-premise into the cloud, like the hybrid connectivity model, they don't follow a proper architecture. So I still see some customers, enterprises are using the on-premise firewall to send all the traffic from the cloud towards the on-prem firewall, and then it goes back to cloud. It could be sitting next to each other, right? So it's a hairpin effect that create, add latency, add extra cost, right? And when they deploy security, is again a broken security model. They don't think about security as from the architecture perspective. They rely too much on the CSP shared security model, which actually costs them a lot, right? So this is what I see from the architecture point of view. And if you look at the cloud today is all multi-cloud, right? So somehow if you can figure this thing out in one single cloud, what about the next cloud, right? So then you are completely lost, and then you're paying a lot of dollars for the consultants, and then this and that. Right? The second thing is about the actual implementation of this, right? So when they try to implement this, sometimes they use the DIY model, like I'll do it myself. I'll write some scripts and they will push this networking and security to these cloud constructs and I'm good. That's completely wrong, right? It's like, you have a body, you have a head, you have a brain, right? What if I just chop your brain off, and then you have the body, and then I ask body to do certain things, right? So it's not going to work. You need a centralized brain which can not only send the signal down to those networking and security constructs, but has a feedback loop so that this brain can adapt to those changes. And people actually forget that when they opted for the scripts or the automation scripts model that they use, right? And in the process, they start bolting the security onto their design, right? Okay, I'll do this, I'll add this service, a service over there. So basically, there is a need to change the overall mindset as well. And the last but not the least is the day two operations. Obviously, when you build something, you have to build it so that it can last for a number of years to come. So you need to have a proper operational strategy. Now, what happens in the cloud if you're not using a proper architecture, a platform like Aviatrix, you're dealing with a lot of black boxes. And these black boxes won't give you anything, right? So you end up paying more when it comes to troubleshooting a scenario. I have seen enterprises, they spend like weeks and days to troubleshoot very simple connectivity issue between a source and destination virtual machine because they don't have visibility. They don't have troubleshooting options there. And then the cost of the log itself is a pain actually, because when you consume these logs, you're paying for the cost for these logs, not only to process the logs, but also to save the log in the storage buckets and whatnot. So that's why, from the very high level perspective, I see cloud is very expensive if you don't do it right.
Okay, I think this is a very good insightful information. I think one of the things is I think this is by design, because if you look at it in on-prem world, when people are building data centers, they have decades and decades of experience and things have been built over time, right? So there's a lot of intellectual cycles that have gone into building things in a more resilient way, more scalable way. Products have been evolved over time, and now when people are moving to the cloud, CSP will not do an architecture for a customer. They are basically building things in terms of Lego blocks that, hey, come and deploy your workloads. We have all these small building blocks, and now you figure out your architecture based on your requirements, right? So the way they do it is, okay, we have all these building blocks, and it's your job to figure out, what's the best way to optimize this for your enterprises, and this will take time. And obviously, Aviatrix is sort of leading the way in terms of giving that reference architecture in many ways, which can help you with the resiliency, scalability, availability, and as well as cost. But coming back to the analogy of on-prem, right, John? As you have been in these situations for many years, how is it different? How was the thinking in on-prem world, and why all of a sudden, let's say you're investing in cloud, all of a sudden you became so cautious about cost, where even $1 million, $2 million of ARR is getting scrutinized. So what is the difference in the mindset of a CFO or a IT decision maker?
I think the difference being is that cloud is still relatively new to large enterprises, right? And they're still getting their head around how things work, how things should be optimized, how things should be secure. From the on-prem world, as you said earlier, it's well architected. It's been around for a decade or two. Security vendors, Checkpoint, Palo Alto, even Cisco, have evolved their product. You knew what the costs were, right? There's a capital cost and there's an ongoing recurring cost. You could budget very easily. If your budget cycle starts, I don't know, February for the following year, you actually know what to budget in terms of recurring because you've had that for preceding years. And if you want to buy another device from a particular security vendor, you go and look at the SKU, you know what that device costs, you can budget another $1 million, $2 million, $3 million, put it in a capital budget, depreciate that over 5 years, 7 years, whatever the depreciation model is for your data center. So it's very, very much modular or very much cut and dry and understood from that perspective. In addition, I think most companies, most big companies, enterprises, they all have some element of Cisco in there. And security, Cisco provides some level of security through secure ACLs, etc. And then you can augment that further with firewalls, and those firewall architectures were, as I said earlier, well architected, sandwich type model in between a couple of big switches, etc. Everything comes through a firewall. Everything from externally comes through a firewall. And then the model started to sort of evolve a little bit more, where this term zero trust is starting to be heard more and more and more every day. And zero trust means something different to different people, right? So what does it actually mean? Well, I got my view, but you guys will have your own view on that. But everyone thinks that, or in my view, trust no one, trust nothing, right? And start from that premise. And you can do that quite easily on-prem, or now you can do it more easily on-prem. And coming from a large enterprise on-prem, we started to even segment out. Would you believe we didn't have segmentation in terms of workload segmentation, environment segmentation? But then we, after a couple of breaches as such, or, audit findings, we started to segment out. And the methodologies, I wouldn't say were easy to do that, even from a well-architected perspective, especially if you have a huge global infrastructure. The methodology and the execution wasn't easy, but still you kind of knew how to do it. And you had vendors that were experienced in that, and they could help you and work through that sort of model of making sure that you're segmented where you need to be segmented. Now, the important thing is you understood your costs. Mm-hmm. You knew what those costs were going to be year on year on year. If you wanted something new, you knew quite quickly how much it's going to cost you, and you budget for that additional capital spend for the following year, as well as the recurring spend, which doesn't normally change. And you got a depreciation model. Coming to the cloud, you don't know any of that, right? You want to be secure in the cloud. You don't generally understand the security model or the security constructs that the native providers providing you with. But what people tend to also not realize or seem to forget is what you're really doing is you're outsourcing your security for your enterprise to a CSP. Is that really what you should be doing? Outsource your security? You're responsible for your security. you're responsible to protect your data and the data of your customer, right? How you do it is up to you. Of course, you can outsource it if you trust the vendor. Of course you can, and they'll do the best they can. But do you want to put your neck on the block when something goes wrong? You know.
Yeah. Well said. Well said.
I think it's. I mean, and even CSP says that they call it security is a shared responsibility, which means that it's your responsibility, right? So there is this, exactly. This issue of education, right? People are not educated. They go to the cloud assuming that everything is secured because they go through those checks, and this CSP says that we do everything. And they go into the cloud, they get the reality that hey, it's their responsibility, and they have to understand. So there's no excuse for saying that we do not understand how cloud works. I think they have to ramp up in terms of how cloud constructs works. They have to understand how the traffic flows work. They understand what application policy model works inside the cloud, just the same way that they used to be good in on-prem. So there's no excuse anymore because the mission critical is moving to the cloud. They have to ramp up, and they have to basically break. And then the other thing is from a perspective that John, you mentioned, two things that is, in my opinion or my experience, IT leaders look for: predictability in cost and predictability in outcome. That was very given, very clear in on-prem world. In the cloud world, people are still learning that, and then vendors are still learning that, and we see it all the time. And I think, at least from EVT's perspective, we have a very good handle on in terms of giving that predictability of cost, even if it's submitted as a service model. We give that predictability of outcome and predictability of cost. This is basically what the IT decision makers are looking for. So coming back, Shazad, to you, right? So maybe we get a little bit more into details or specifics of. Yeah. Show us some examples of a security design, right, or security use case examples where enterprises can look to say, okay, yeah, this is something I'm doing today. Maybe there's a better way of doing it. Maybe I end up having a better model with a better cost structure. Yeah. So walk us through some of those examples.
Sure. So I hope you can see my screen. So this is one example, and I have hundreds of examples like this, but just to stay focused on the security topic. And John, you mentioned about this skill gap problem, right? And then not knowing what cloud or how cloud behaves. And this is a perfect example where you see on the left-hand side, what I'm showing here is a design proposed by one of the security vendors in GCP, where they have a virtual machine sitting in the middle, and they're connecting different VPCs to these virtual machines, which happens to be the VM series, could be anything, could be Checkpoint or Fortinet, doesn't really matter. But the problem is that the cloud in GCP world works really differently, because in this very case, a virtual machine NIC has to be sitting in a respective VPC, a unique VPC, right? But if you look at AWS, that's not the case. When you deploy a virtual machine or EC2 instance or VM series, if you have number of NICs, they can all participate in the same VPC. That's just one nuance over there. But there are a lot like this, because here you have TGW, here you have the IGW works differently. You have public subnet, private subnet notion. On the Google side, it's completely different the way they do it. So you basically end up creating snowflakes. You end up creating unicorns, and you create problem for you, right? Because, okay, so you somehow deploy it, but who's going to manage it? Because the time is also money, right? People don't think about it. When they look at their operation, they think that, okay, yeah, that's fine. I can save some costs, cut some corners here and there, but it doesn't go very long, right? And then, so that's a challenge, right? So how do you solve it? So yeah, this is the problem. So if you look at the solution, and this is a proven SAP adopted by hundreds of Aviatrix customers, where what you need to think about, you think about the architecture and a repeatable architecture, which is consistent and is standard across the board, right? So if you look at on the left-hand side, we have AWS, we have Aviatrix Transit VPC, and the firewalls are deployed in a centralized location. This is a cost saving right there, because if you don't follow this type of a model proposed by Aviatrix, you end up deploying these VM series in each and every VPC. And we go to Azure, then you do the same thing, right? So it's a cost of managing those instances, cost of paying for the license for those instances, those VM series, and also the data processing cost, right? So you as an enterprise architect or owner needs to think about this repeatable architecture, repeating in exactly the same way in Azure, in GCP, OCI, Alibaba, and whatnot.
Great.
So Shazad, let me ask you a quick question here. Just looking at this from a customer perspective, centralized firewall sounds great. You know, I want to keep control of my costs. Right? I don't want to necessarily cut my costs and compromise on security either. Right? I want to have the highest security at the most cost-effective rate that I can get. Right? So by having a central, I know the answer to this, but I want it to come from you. By having a centralized firewall and not doing it at the VPC VNet level, right? The security using cloud native. Am I more secure or am I less secure?
No, so we have looked at only one part of this puzzle, right? If you look at the Aviatrix architecture and the philosophy is that we embed security as part of your data plane. We embed security or provide security as close to the workload as possible. In order to do that, we have a number of different options that I'm going to show you when the conversation moves on. But for example, micro-segmentation is one of the options. Then you have network segmentation. Then you have built-in network analytics. You have anomaly detection. You have machine learning, happening inside your cloud through Aviatrix platform that is actually protecting it close to the source. And yes, you need to send this traffic back to these centralized firewalls for deeper packet inspection, right? But if you just want to protect the traffic, if you just want to find the anomalies out, or if you just have a URL filtering, requirement, why would you send your traffic all the way here and then bring it back? It might actually create less security in that sense. If your bad packet is traveling from here all the way there and getting inspected here, why is it on the wire? You're paying for it. Why not this gateway here stops it, right? And that's what we preach and promote.
Yeah, so I think I can basically conclude two things here, right? So Shazad, thanks for this explanation. One is basically the architecture, the constructs that each CSP provides. AWS do things differently, GCP do things differently, Azure do things differently. And then it's way too much of learning for a customer to be able to figure out a design or engineer a design for the production mission critical applications, right? It's way too different. And even if you hire smart guys, right? If you have 2-3 smart guys, they will go and build it, but the buck will stop at the operations team, right? Can your operations team manage that? Right? That basically should be your evaluation criteria is, hey, is my operations team able to manage my mission critical applications across the different environments or across different regions in the most effective way? That's number one. The other thing is that in cloud, the definition of parameter is very different than on-prem world. In on-prem world, there used to be well-defined DMZs. There's a parameter where you send the traffic and then get things inspected. In cloud, that's not the case. In cloud, you have a VPC or you have a VNet. You have your most critical crown jewels sitting in those VPCs and VNets, and your internet is next to those applications in the form of IGW or any other gateways that CSP provides. So the definition of parameter is very different. The postures are very different. The way the traffics are coming into your environment and exiting out is very different, right? So it's not that, okay, yeah, I have a well-defined DMZs everywhere, and I'm going to put my Palo Altos and all of that there. It doesn't work, right? So understanding the traffic flows and understanding how it's different is the key part, but then how Aviatrix is simplifying that to provide you a simple, consistent, and policy-driven way of implementing security. And yes, in some cases, you will leverage a firewall of your choice, but that doesn't mean that you bloat that deployment by putting checkpoints or Palo Alto. Maybe these vendors will not like us because we make it easy and let customers save money. But that's what the reality is. That's modern cloud infrastructure is. And then now you can also see that even the cloud providers themselves are coming out with their own firewalls, right? So they are going to make a presence, and then people will start to leverage whatever the best possible security architecture is for the enterprise. So that's great insight. So that maybe you can take us through some other examples around. And I think today's podcast is more about security capabilities. So let's just talk about, security stuff so that it all blends together.
Yeah. So I'll give you one more example of, protecting the traffic that is going towards the internet, as it is called, the egress traffic, right? So what people actually do, and in my opinion, that's a bad design, they use the native NAT gateways to filter that traffic. It's not very efficient. It's not very secure, in my opinion. So that's number one. Number two, when you deploy these NAT gateways or services, you basically end up paying for the cost of it, even by just the virtue of deploying it. So you're not using it, you just deployed it, you're paying for it. There is a cost. But when you actually send the traffic out through this NAT gateway, you then pay by the gigabyte, right? It's the unpredictable cost. So what we propose at Aviatix is that why not use a sophisticated egress FQDN filtering mechanism, which not only provides you all the functionality being provided by this NAT gateway, like the NATing functionality, but it goes, a lot of steps further by protecting your traffic based on the actual URL, right? Because let's say if you want to connect to github.com only, why not create a zero trust policy saying, okay, github.com is allowed and rest is just denied, like what John mentioned earlier. So we provide this functionality, and it actually saves a lot of cost to our customers by not using those NAT gateways, because now you're using the NAT gateway, you're paying for the log and everything, which is part and parcel of the Aviatix platform under one licensing umbrella, right? So you have this notion of writing the policy and then creating these policies to block the traffic going out towards the internet through our gateway. Even within this architecture, you can see sort of distributed where you have the gateways deployed in each and every VPC, but you can actually use a centralized egress FQDN model, and you can deploy your networking services like that too.
Yeah, this is actually a very killer capability that some of our large customers are leveraging, and especially some of the customers who offer their product as SaaS, like analytics, actionable intelligence, analytics software, who are sort of moving to the cloud, and they want to be able to offer the services in each hyperscaler. So they will have an offering in AWS, Azure, GCP, and then they leverage this to basically insert these intelligent security gateways in each of their VPC or VNet or VCNs in Oracle to make sure that they secure it through a centralized policy model, right? So because there's a customer data, it's important information, they want to make sure that it's being controlled in terms of how the traffic egress out of their important VPC. So a very, very important use case, and obviously you can save a lot of cost to that. John,
yeah,
you were saying something?
Yeah, I was going to say, so our enhanced FQDN filtering, Shahzad, I would say it's more secure than the cloud native NAT gateway, and it saves you costs. So you're not only being more secure, but you're getting the added benefit of a cost save there as well, which is great.
Yep. Now I'll give you one more example of network segmentation. So a lot of customers, they are challenged to provide the segmentation, air gapping between different type of environment. Like you mentioned, John, in your days in City, you wanted to do that, to have this segmentation based on line of business, based on prod, QA and dev, right? So there was not an easy way to do that, right? So what we do with our platform is provide this network segmentation where you can club those line of businesses and workloads together. For example, we have the green and blue here, and then you can actually write the policies, right? It's a policy-based model where you can say that the green cannot talk to the blue, and then you can extend this policy across multiple clouds. That's the beauty, right? It's because the solution is cloud agnostic. And not only that, you can actually extend these segments to your on-premise SD-WAN or data center branches as well, right? So you can actually have a meaningful way, an intelligent way of actually migrating your workloads from your on-premise into the cloud. Because a lot of customers, they are challenged. They are like facing this challenge of, okay, how do I migrate? If I migrate my data center into the cloud and everything is accessible to anything, that's not the model I want. So they struggle with that. So we actually provide this capability with the zero trust policy driven network segmentation framework. And if you want to take it one step further, right, because that was like the line of business model. Now, what about even going deeper into the VPCs and VNet and providing the micro segmentation? So here you can see we have blue, green segments, and you can create those segments based on that CSP tag or different, criterias like the type of virtual machines or the operating system running on that virtual machine. And then you can write the micro segmented policy where you can say that, this segment, although it's part of the same VPC, is not allowed to talk to the other segments, let's say sitting in Azure. So again, very powerful way of, providing the enhanced security and also saving the cost.
Yeah, and this is such a beautiful sort of model for any large enterprise with complex, environments, complex applications, and they want to get down to micro segmentation. It's easy enough for the environmental segmentation, prod, UAT, dev, etc. Getting down to the application level segmentation. This is such a fantastic, simple, quick, easy way to do it, at a micro level.
Yeah, I think the key part of this one is the ability to consider all of your clouds, right, that you have as a resource pool, and then be able to have a centralized view of where your applications are living and how they need to be protected from a centralized view and centralized control.
Yeah.
And so that's what the beauty, in my opinion, is. And obviously, me and Shahzad come from NSX world for many years. We did this in on-prem, and now seeing this happen in a more modern cloud way, the cloud native way, is something that absolutely is magnificent. Obviously, you have been in the city and you have seen that grow in NSX world as well. But you can also see that that is more for on-prem, where you have control of the hypervisor. You can do things in the NIC, you can do things in the hypervisor. In cloud, I think it's all about how can you do it in a more in the cloud way, the modern cloud way, in the more intelligent way that is lightweight, as well as provide you full control of how things happen, considering all the clouds as one resource pool that you can control with a centralized policy structure, and go all the way down to the application level, to the network segments level, to segment them, right, is a huge value to the enterprises.
Yeah, and on the on-prem world, it's, understood how to do the environmental segmentation, prod, dev, UAT, etc. But then when you come to app, then you've got to start thinking about agents everywhere, which is another thing that you either love or you hate.
Yeah, since you mentioned the name agent, I thought to just show you guys this amazing technology that we have as part of the Aviatix platform, which is agentless, but it's still providing the threat detection and threat guarding right at the source of the problem, right? So if you look at this, what we have as part of the platform, something called Threat IQ, which actually gives our customers not only the intelligence or insight into the threats happening in their network, but also automatically remediate those threats, right? So in the traditional way, a legacy way, what a customer or enterprise would do, they will actually, again, send this traffic all the way from this VNet or VPC to a centralized firewall, let's say this place, and then this guy will do the threat detection. Why do you need to do that? If the platform can actually provide you this intelligence, right, at the source, right, at the VPC VNet level, why not block this traffic right there, right? And then save some cost for the data that is traversing from here to there.
Not only save costs, Shahzad, why would you want to have that malicious traffic coming into your network and then out or inspected centrally? You wouldn't want to. You'd want to block it as close as possible to your source. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, if you look at all the examples of data breaches and ransomware, right? Things happen from inside the network, right, through lateral movement. And I think it's important for enterprises to, and especially the security architects, to have some sorts of eyes and ears in terms of what's happening in the network, right? Because there are threat actors sitting out there trying to compromise your important asset. It's happening all the time. As you have heard the very famous quote that there are only two types of enterprises: one that have been breached and the ones that do not know that they have been breached. Right? And we have seen this many, many times that once we start ThreatIQ, ThreatGuard, and this is basically comes embedded as part of the platform.
Yeah.
You start that, you start discovering the information, and you will see it lights up like a Christmas tree in terms of the malicious IP that you see on your network. And a lot of this could be a data breach or data exfiltration that's happening in your environment. So it's important that, again, there's no excuse. There's no excuse for enterprises to say that, hey, we do not know how cloud works. There's no excuse to just completely blindly trust a CSP that, hey, they will take care of security. They already say that security is a shared responsibility. They do their part, but then as an enterprise and enterprise architects, people have to scale up their knowledge and make sure that they implement the right platform. And ThreatIQ, ThreatGuard, just being the fact that it's embedded into the data plane, we see things. And once you see things, you can control and you can enforce things in terms of security.
Exactly.
So, all right, Shadad. So this is great. So I think in terms of cost perspective, right? One of the value that you get out of it is that once you have a platform implemented and you have you're seeing all the data, you're not buying any additional security tools. You're not bloating your stack, right? You're not putting too much burden on your operations team. You are basically reducing the mean time to resolution or mean time to an attack.
Exactly.
Right, in terms of what's happening, right? So this is a great value that people do not understand, that, okay, you invest in a technology, but then also look at all the benefits that you're getting, that otherwise you will have to pay 5 other vendors, and you have to train up your operations team to do things differently. That's a great value.
And
so the security, Shadad, is embedded in everything that you've shown us.
Oh yeah,
it's embedded.
Exactly.
No extra costs for it. So you don't have to think, well, if I have this function, I have to budget for X amount. If I have that function next year, this is it out of the box.
It is
predictable costs.
Exactly. You said it right. Yeah. And guys, you mentioned visibility. So I thought to show you this also, because once you have visibility, like Naman, you mentioned, you can do wonders, right? And this is one of the wonders that we do with the platform, where we can actually block the traffic based on where it's coming from. And it is extremely important for the data locality, for the GDPR and some other regulations across the globe to stop the traffic from certain regions or countries. And again, this is part of the platform where you can just simply go into the Aviatrix dashboard and you have this simple knob to allow and block the traffic from certain countries or certain regions. And we will actually implement it for you, right? So you don't have to muck with any gateway, routing table, this and that. No, this is all happening as part of the platform. And people actually don't realize that there is so much automation built into the platform. And basically people just take advantage of it and just don't think about the intelligence that we provide just natively part of the platform.
Yeah, this is a great capability done in a very simple manner. And I think it's hugely useful for enterprises who needs to abide by local regulations and data residency regulations. Some of my friends who were at AWS and Azure, when they saw that, they were blown away by this capability and how easily we can do that, because customers keep asking them, right? Because you think about this, right? So now you are leveraging a hyperscalers infrastructure that could be anywhere, right? It could be in a region where it may not be in your region. It might be, let's say, if you're in Dubai, it might be in Sharjah. Right now, you are hosting your applications in a city which is not, do not exist, but then you also have to follow the law of the land in terms of where the data can exit or ingress from. And this provides you an easy way to build that bubble of security around your applications and who they interact with. This is very easy, very powerful feature capability that a lot of our customers leverage. And I think one other thing, Shadad, that we were discussing is about how can we be more proactive, right? Because I know that everybody does reactive security, that is happening, and then you detect that and you say, okay, how can I minimize the impact, right? Or how to reduce the mean time to resolution. But in modern world, people are now looking at how can we proactively do things, right? So because you have now artificial intelligence, you have machine learning, you have trends that are being recorded You have data that is being stored, which can actually help an enterprise detect things that may happen, and we can block and triage that even before it happens. So give us some examples of how can we do that, and how can we avoid cost from that aspect as well.
Yeah, Numan. So this is again one machine learning algorithm running in my head also, because as soon as you start talking, I was reading your mind through this ML algorithm, and then here you go. This is exactly what we
Very
have.
dangerous thing. Very dangerous thing, Shadab.
Yeah, I'm a machine learning guy. So, so we have this amazing feature as part of built in the data plane, as part of the platform, as part of the simple licensing model, which actually can detect the difference of behavior in your network, right? Think about, like, let's say if you're using your credit card today in California, and at the same time, your physical credit card is being used somewhere in, let's say, UK, right? That's not technically possible. So you get this alert on your phone saying, you know what, something is wrong, right? Do you want to approve this charge or not? So similar concept applied here at the network level, where we actually create the baseline of your network, your deployment, your topology. And if something deviates from that baseline, we can quickly alert you. We can detect it, and we can say that, you know what, something is wrong. Maybe someone is trying to run some bot, or maybe bit mining is happening, or maybe there is a ransomware type of attack happening in your network. So we have this intelligence, and not only the intelligence, like I mentioned before, once we know all these, the threats and whatnot, we can actually block them as well automatically for you.
And this can already happen today, Shazad, with with the diagram that you just shown. If you can block that threat as close to the edge or the source as possible, then you're already being proactive. Exactly. You're not allowing that data to infiltrate into your environment, and you can discard that data straight away at source.
Exactly, and you're also alerted. You're
also alerted. Yeah,
your response team is also getting all these insights, also, right? So that you can prove it to your auditor or whoever that, you know what, yes, it happened. I see the anomaly. This is the alert generated by Aviatix. It came to me as a webhook to anything that you like to.
Exactly, and the anomaly detection. If it's something that's happening internally, from bad actor internally, etc., and these things do happen, then the anomaly detection would, once it's baselined, the network would see that, and then give you the necessary alerts.
I think this is brilliant, and I just love it. This is what the modern cloud security posture should look like. It's about insights. It's about things that you don't know, that you can take actions in advance to make it better for your applications and for your critical data that you are processing for your customers or end customers. So, John, let's say if you wear that persona of head of infrastructure, and the person who writes the check, somebody shows you this anomaly detection, it's already embedded in, right? Do you think it's valuable? Because I see it's not just about immediate value that you see, but it's also about explaining or help you with auditors, with compliance guides, right? Because it's cost of insurance and cost of insuring your business, and proving to your auditors that your data that you're processing, either for your own important key applications or for your end customers, is secure. I think this is the way where you can actually save a lot of cost from that angle as well. So what are your thoughts, being
my thoughts on this are twofold. So you can't put a price on having something like this. The benefit to any enterprise by having this security that's proactive, as well as can be reactive, but you want it to be as much proactive as possible, is priceless in my view. If you haven't got this, then you're certainly missing out, and you're putting yourself at risk. Let me tell you give you a little story. Last week, I was with a customer. I can't tell you the name or prospect, and a regulated customer. They had their internal audits done, and they had a lot of findings, security gaps, security findings, etc. And I was kind of shocked at some of the findings. They were very, very basic. but they were stopping these people in their tracks to figure out how do they do it. And this is their cloud environment now, right? I had to turn around and say that to them that, your security is pretty weak, not only from your cloud networking perspective, but your wider cloud security is not really up to par, which they completely appreciated and agreed with. And I had to follow up by saying, I wouldn't put my money with you guys, right? I wouldn't. So you could tell what sort of organization they were, right? And they were appreciative of the comments and wanted to know how we can help. And of course, these sort of things are things that they're now considering because they don't know about them and they don't know what they don't know, right? But it kind of frightened me. I thought, thank God I'm not banking with these people.
You're very nice.
I'd be really scared. All my hard-earned money, and it's not really been.
A lot of businesses, bad reputation. It has wiped out many businesses or have lost customers' trust. So I think this is something that people cannot take for granted. I'm surprised when I hear large enterprises say that, okay, let's just go migrate first. Let us just get it to work and we will revisit security later on.
Yes, I've heard
you don't even have the luxury of being in the business because if you lose customer trust by having a breach or data exfiltration, you will lose the trust of that customer and they will go somewhere. There are thousands of options now available.
Exactly. And not only have you lost the trust of that customer, you're going to be publicly reported, right? And, God knows how much future business you're not going to get as well. So
right. Siddharth, thanks for this, and I think we just have a couple of minutes left. So maybe you want to recap, and we can.
So the recap is very simple. Think about the architecture first. Think about a repeatable architecture. What Aviatix provide, because the world is multi-cloud. We cannot deny that. Even in single cloud, if you are in multiple regions, that's the definition of multiple clouds. Being flexible, being simple is very important. Use your services like next generation firewall for what it is built for, not for doing the mundane type of task, right? Think about agility for your network, business continuity, disaster recovery. This is very important and it's part and parcel of our platform. And think about providing the security at the layer, like we discussed, so close to the source at the data plane, but if needed, okay, send it to some other services like next generation firewall, but also think about the zero trust mentality. It's a mentality, in my opinion. There is no product that can do that, right? And then with that, you will definitely achieve faster and better ROIs. And if you don't believe in that, we have published this Forrester study, which you can go take a look, download, which actually gives you more insight into how we are actually saving a lot of dollars and euros for our enterprises. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's something that a lot of business owner needs. That okay, what you're saying looks too good to be true. Prove that. Right, so we did that Forrester case study, put customers' data to test, and we came out with this value, report for our customers. So if you're interested, for sure, reach out, and we have all sorts of custom examples of how much ROI you can get. And in general, I think we are pretty conservative. But if you look at what we discussed today, we're talking about spending millions otherwise in protecting your security, which Aviatix is giving you as part of their embedded fabric. And as part of a modern security posture. So thanks, guys. I think we are over time, and really great insights, Shazad. John, really great input from a persona of a infrastructure buyer. I'm sure that we will continue to do this similar topic, and this video type of format is also good. We have to wear a nice shirt and so that we look good. Otherwise, the audio will just go up.
Gotta wear your Aviatix shirt.
All right, guys.
It's been fantastic.
Take care.
Thanks so much. Thanks, Numan.
Bye.